All right, everyone, we start off today with talk about a federal abortion ban. We've heard a lot of fear-mongering with regards to the liberals claiming that if Donald Trump is elected, he's going to ban abortion. Women will be barefooted in the kitchen, they'll be perpetually pregnant, and effectively enslaved. That's basically the talking point. This is not actually reality at all. It's been a trope for a long time, but it's never really been true. Donald Trump has been astonishingly on point since at least the late 1990s with regards to this issue. Now, my own thoughts on the issue, of course, I will always point these out. I am pro-choice. I believe in a woman's right to choose. There are limits to that. I don't believe in Ralph Northam third trimester abortions, getting the baby chewed out of your stomach by someone's teeth and weird shit like that. I believe in a cutoff at the period of viability. If a woman's going to die imminently, of course, then there's an exception that goes beyond that. But that's basically my views on abortion. A woman should be able to choose. I don't want the government involved. I know that I run up against some members of my own audience when I say this. J.D. Vance has come out and reiterated what Trump has already stated a dozen fucking times, which is that he would not sign off on a federal abortion ban. He's been extremely consistent on this. The liberals continuously pretend that he is a hardliner on this issue. He's anything but a hardliner. He's the mean median in mode with regards to public sentiment regarding abortion. And he has been, again, for decades and decades. He has never proclaimed that he wanted a federal abortion ban. What he wanted was to get Roe v. Wade out of the way, return it to the states, and that was the original opinion of the entire Republican Party. He accomplished what the other Republicans could never accomplish. They continuously screwed up. It's like watching the most stupid orangutan in the zoo shock its nads over and over again, not realizing that the other button dispenses a mango or a banana or something like that. It's incredible to watch. Donald Trump has never been a hardliner on this issue. He's also not a hardliner on gay rights. He's not a hardliner even on the trans issue or anything like that. He's basically a 90s liberal. But by modern standards, according to the leftoids, that makes you far right. It's just like J.K. Rowling is supposedly very far right. Yeah, she's a third wave feminist who lives in a castle, admittedly. Supports, anti, bend the knife and everything else over there in Britanistan. But supposedly she's far right. It doesn't make any sense. The modern political dynamic has shifted in a two-directional sort of manner. Let me explain. On one hand, you have, in the United States at least, and in some other countries, you have a movement towards populism. So lowering taxes, actually lowering taxes, not just watering the corporations and hoping for trickle-down. I know that that's a Marxist term, but it is apt. More freedom of speech, less government regulation. That's one side of the movement. So the Republican Party of yesteryear, it was the party of war. It was, look at George W. It was the party of starting wars, corporate tax breaks, but no real tax breaks for the average person. And not really a defense of free expression and so forth. Overriding the states in the name of national security. That was the Republican Party. It shifted from that. The Democratic Party of yesteryear was also pro-higher taxes. Now it's even more pro-high tax. It shifted to the left. Was originally in favor of more free expression, but only because W was president, basically. The second that Obama took over, of course, that completely died. It crashed and burned, etc., etc., etc. You have a dichotomy that's forming in U.S. politics where you have two sides that are actually differentiated from one another. Now, 20 years ago, they weren't really differentiated, now were they? It was just uni-party. You didn't really have any real outsiders until the Ron Paul revolution and the rise of the Tea Party. which differentiated itself from what had been the uni-party. Some of it got reabsorbed, admittedly. But beyond that, of course, generally speaking, you had the uni-party until fairly recently, and it held hegemonic power in the United States. Donald Trump, on abortion, is a bit different from the classic Republican. The Republicans had used this as a wedge issue for decades, and they completely fucked up on it, by the way, and continuously promoted either a federal abortion ban or state-level bans, etc. Now, if you're in a far red state, it doesn't really change the political metric. It's not going to mean anything. For swing states, the suggestion of a federal abortion ban definitely would be a bad idea. Trump, strategically speaking, knows this. And I believe that he's being authentic when he voices his opinions with regards to this. When he says he would veto, and Vance is proclaiming this, and he would know, he's the fucking running mate. When he proclaims Donald Trump will veto such a ban if it comes over his desk, I believe that, number one, because he's been consistent on the issue, and number two, I support that veto. I do not want to see abortion banned in the United States. If a state wishes to exercise its 10th Amendment rights through a ballot initiative and wishes to restrict abortion, while some of those restrictions are onerous, it would be constitutional. It would be unconstitutional if the federal government were to really make a decision on the issue. The federal government should be mostly absent from our lives anyway. Most things should be state or municipal. That's the whole point. That's also where most of the abuse comes from, by the way. It doesn't come from the federal government. It may come from a federal agency. Otherwise, it's usually coming from a state government. You may disagree with the abortion rules that have been laid down in a state. For example, here in Vermont, abortion here is technically limitless. Technically speaking, you can get a third trimester abortion in this state. Is there going to be a doctor willing to perform such a procedure? Hazarding your life in the process, by the way. Probably not. But theoretically, it's legal. I do not support that. I believe there need to be hard cap limitations, with some exceptions depending on the situation. Likewise, I don't agree with certain red states, tending to be religious ones, that have effectively banned abortion. I take up a middle-of-the-road sort of argument on this. Abortion should be safe and legal, but there are limitations to it generally speaking. There are extenuating circumstances, but those are fairly rare. Donald Trump appears to agree with the basic premise. This is not fence straddling. It's not riding the fence. It's pragmatism. It's understanding that there are solutions to an issue which is of cultural importance, or can be, that basically they make sense. It does not make sense to ban abortion. It's going to happen anyway. People will just go to Mexico or Canada or a different state, or they'll use a coat hanger, etc., etc. And I don't want some 14-year-old knocked up by their own dad to have to go to the back alley with a coat hanger. Not interested. I can't get on board with that. At the same time, I also can't get on board with the idea that a woman should be able to abort a fully viable baby, and at that point it is a baby, unless there is a compelling medical reason with which she would have to have one, like she's going to die of sepsis if she carries this child to term. Okay, she's allowed to save her own life. I want the government generally out of it, but I do want that particular regulation in play. This is exactly what Donald Trump is talking about. It's exactly the right thing to say. Other Republicans will chafe at this and say, well, Donald Trump, he's not pro-life. Well, that's not what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You come from maybe an evangelical district or something like that. And so for you, politically, it's pragmatic to take up a hardline stance. But that's not the average place in the country. That's not the average congressional district. It's not the average voter. It's an outlier. It's the same as people that would be on board with like Ralph Northam's third trimester abortion scheme. that's an outlier. In San Francisco, you go ahead and preach that, speak it to power or whatever you want to do. It'll go over very well. Try and take that to North Carolina or something like that. Not going to work so well now, is it? That's about all. Peace out.